There's a person in your life who doesn't care about football. You know who I'm talking about. While the entire world is screaming at a screen, while millions of men are bonding over statistics and replays, while nations are united in collective madness over a game, this person is somewhere else. Doing something else, feeling nothing, and that absence, that silence. It reveals something brutal about power, control, and who actually understands how the world really works. Most people will never notice this person. They'll dismiss them as weird, antisocial, or boring. But Machiavelli would have noticed them immediately. He would have recognized what that silence means. Because Machiavelli knew something that most people spend their entire lives trying to forget. The masses need a spectacle. They need something to worship, something to distract them from the truth, something to make them feel like they belong to something bigger than themselves. And anyone who doesn't need that spectacle, they're operating on a completely different level. Let's be honest about what football really is. It's not just a game. It's a ritual. It's a religion disguised as sports. It's the modern Colosseum. And the masses are screaming for blood and glory, just like they always have. Except now they're screaming from their sofas, wearing shirts with corporate logos, spending money they don't have on tickets and merchandise, sacrificing their time, their peace, their dignity, all for the illusion of belonging. Every weekend, billions of people synchronize their emotions around 11 men kicking a ball. It's the most successful mass manipulation in human history. It's genius, really. It's exactly what Machiavelli understood about control. You don't need to force people into submission. You just need to give them something to believe in, something to feel, something that makes them forget their own powerlessness. And then there are the people who don't watch. These people are invisible. Nobody celebrates them, nobody even really sees them. But their absence from this collective trance is telling you something if you're paying attention. They're not boycotting football out of moral superiority. They're not being contrarian just to seem intelligent. What they're actually doing is far more interesting. They've somehow, whether consciously or not, stepped outside the agreement. They've refused the distraction. They've declined the invitation to the Colosseum. And in doing that, they've revealed something about themselves that most people never discover. They have a different relationship with power. See, Machiavelli understood that in any society, there are layers of manipulation. The most obvious layer is entertainment. Keep the people entertained, and they'll never question why they're not in control. Keep them emotionally invested in something external, something that makes them feel like they matter, and they'll never notice that you're operating the levers behind the scenes. The masses need narratives. They need drama. They need to feel like they're part of something momentous. That's not cynicism. That's observation. That's how the world actually works. But some people are immune to this. Not because they're smarter, not because they're better, but because something in their psychology is wired differently. Maybe they grew up without the cultural pressure. Maybe they never felt the need to belong to a tribe. Maybe they've experienced enough loss or failure in their own lives that they can't afford to waste emotional energy on a game where the outcome doesn't affect them. Maybe they're just different. But here's what's interesting. The people who don't watch football tend to have one thing in common. They're less likely to need external validation. They're less likely to derive their sense of self from belonging to a group. They're less easily controlled by spectacle. This doesn't make them happier. This doesn't make them better. This makes them dangerous. Machiavelli knew that the most powerful people in any system are not the ones screaming the loudest. They're the ones who remain calm, the ones who watch everyone else lose themselves in emotion while they keep their heads clear. The ones who understand that the game is never really about the game. It's about control. It's about knowing that if you can make someone care about something, you can make them do anything. If you can make them feel like they're part of a community, through a shared obsession, you can extract loyalty, money, time, and attention. It's the perfect economy of control. The people who don't watch football understand this on some level. Even if they can't articulate it, they understand that choosing not to participate is itself a form of power. It's a refusal. It's a quiet statement that says, I'm not interested in the distraction you're offering. I'm not interested in losing myself in your spectacle. I'm not interested in the false sense of belonging you're selling. And that refusal isolates them, Because the moment you step outside the shared ritual, you become an outsider. You become someone who doesn't understand the basic language of human connection. And that isolation. That's actually their greatest vulnerability. Because humans are tribal. We need to belong. And the people who don't watch football, the people who opt out of the collective trance, they're often doing so at a cost. They're missing the bonding, the jokes, the sense of being part of something. They're sitting alone while everyone else is celebrating or mourning together. That takes a certain kind of strength, or a certain kind of loneliness. Maybe both. Here's the brutal truth that nobody wants to say out loud: the people who don't watch football often aren't there by choice, or if they are, it's a choice that comes from pain. They've already learned through experience that investing themselves in something external, something they can't control, something that doesn't actually care about them, is a path to disappointment. They've already had their hearts broken enough times. They've already felt powerless enough. So they've built a wall. They've created distance, and they call it freedom. But Machiavelli would see through this too. He'd recognize that the person who claims not to care is often the person who's been hurt most by caring. The person who's opted out of the game is often the person who understands exactly how the game is played. They're not above the spectacle. They've just experienced what it feels like to be consumed by it, and they've chosen a different path. That's not strength, that's survival. The real insight here isn't about football at all. It's about what happens when you become aware of the machinery. Once you see how the trick is done, you can never unsee it. Once you understand that the spectacle is designed to control you, once you feel the weight of that understanding, you can't just go back to enjoying the show. Some people manage it. They enjoy football while also understanding that it's a form of mass manipulation. They can hold both truths at once. But other people can't. For them, the knowledge poisons everything. They see the spectacle, and they see the chains, and they can't enjoy the spectacle without feeling the chains. The people who don't watch football are often the ones with this poisoned knowledge. They're the ones who've glimpsed behind the curtain and can't look at the show the same way anymore. And yes, this makes them unusual. It makes them lonely. It makes them seem strange to everyone else who's still lost in the spectacle. But it also means they're operating with a certain clarity that most people never achieve. They're not pretending. They're not performing. They're not investing their emotional energy in something designed to distract them from their own powerlessness. But here's the final twist. The thing that Machiavelli would have found most fascinating. The person who doesn't watch football isn't actually free. They've just chosen a different cage. They've escaped one form of control only to create another. The person who rejects the spectacle because they see through it is still, in a way, ruled by that spectacle. They're defined by their refusal. Their identity is built on what they don't do. And that's not freedom. That's just a different kind of captivity. The truly powerful person in this scenario is not the one screaming about football. It's not the one who's opted out and built a wall of superiority around their refusal. The truly powerful person is the one who can enjoy the spectacle without needing it. The one who can watch the game, understand exactly how it's manipulating him, feel the emotions anyway, and still make his own choices. The one who's integrated both the knowledge and the experience without being controlled by either. That person is rare. That person is dangerous. And that person understands exactly what Machiavelli knew. The greatest form of power isn't rejecting the system. It's participating in the system while remaining conscious of how it works. It's being in the crowd without becoming the crowd. It's feeling the emotion without being ruled by it. So the next time you see someone who doesn't watch football, don't dismiss them as weird. Don't pity them for missing out. And don't admire them for their purity. Just recognize them for what they are. Someone who's made a choice about how to navigate a world built on spectacle and control. Whether that choice is conscious or unconscious, whether it comes from wisdom or trauma, whether it's strength or cowardice, it reveals something about how they see themselves in relation to power. And that, finally, is the only thing worth understanding about people. Do subscribe.